Madam Speaker, it's my pleasure to stand today to represent the people of Bay of Quinte, and I'm extremely proud to have been elected the first Conservative member for my riding. I want to thank all the volunteers that worked hard putting their time into the election, especially my campaign manager, Susan Smith. We know how much work it is, especially to manage me. As many members of this House know, it's also a family affair. My mother, Heather, was one of the greatest volunteers in Atlantic Canadian. She was born in Fredericton and grew up in Prince Edward Island. It's no surprise that door knocking is just easy to Maritimers. My kids were all involved as well. Jack is 8, Patrick 7, and Zoe 4. But my biggest thanks goes to my wife, Allison. Most of us will know the biggest sacrifice in this job are our families and especially our partners. I'm not sure if this was meant to scare us, but our first training in the week was a work-life balance seminar when it was told that 75% of MPs end up getting divorced. That's a big number. So I moved right next to my father-in-law in Ottawa, which he says is a blessing and a curse, so time will tell. It's a big sacrifice to have families here and to have us away from our families. And my biggest thanks and love goes to my wife, Allison, who's home with my children right now, sacrificing her time for us so that we can make this region and country a better place. My wife and her family are from Thunder Bay, or T-Bay as they affectionately call it, and Thunder Bay residents are extremely strong people. And I went there once in the winter, and I can tell you that's why they're so tough. It's so cold in January. My wife lives by the motto, always choose love. In 2015, we lost our son Teddy at birth with a congenital heart defect. Every year, there are thousands of Canadians who experience the terror of infant loss or miscarriage. And Allison was instrumental in our region for being a voice to women who experience loss. She wrote a blog called alwayschooselove.net, and she continues to be a tireless advocate for women. She is a light for so many, and I love her dearly. I would also be amiss to not talk about my grandfather and father, both who were political candidates provincially in 1975 and 2003, respectively, for the Provincial Conservative Party, and who did not get to represent their constituents, which proves that third time is the charm. As my grandmother Audrey says, I'm happy to be alive to see a Williams elected. But both immensely contributed to our region. My grandfather, Don Williams, was an entrepreneur operating Sterling Motors from 1956 for 20 years, and then started and still successfully ran Williams Hotels, which still runs today. He raised awareness for organ donation in Canada, having received one of the first heart transplants in the first decade in 1991, as well as supporting Camp Quimilak. And he'd always say, get your donor card, and many local charities. My grandfather taught me tenacity. My father, John Williams, became the mayor of Quinte West for 8 years and then the honorary colonel of CFB 8 Wing in Trenton. My father passed away in 2020, but would have loved to have been here. He lived by the motto, get her done. My father, alongside long-time Liberal MPP Hugh O'Neill, created the Afghanistan Memorial in Bain Park in Quinte West, having attended every repatriation ceremony during the Afghanistan War, and was instrumental in the creation of the Highway of Heroes to commemorate those men and women from our military on the 401. As an MP, I look forward to the challenge of representing my constituents in this House and feel very privileged to be here in this place. And never before have we had the challenges we face in this country. We all know that we live in the best country on the planet. Our standard of living, our history and culture, our freedom is the most revered in the world. But we have some persistent problems facing Canadians right now. Inflation is its highest in 20 years. I've had calls from seniors this week who can't decide whether paying for groceries or paying for the rent. We consistently hear of employment as back to pre-COVID levels, and yet we have heard of well over 1 million job openings or vacancies in this country. I can tell you that we have 2,500 skilled jobs we can't fill in Bay of Quinte today. We've had restaurants shut down for up to 2 weeks. Housing is a disaster right now. With prices doubled in the past year, Prince Edward County in my region is one of the highest jumps in housing costs the last year, 170%. with the average price last month at $1.2 million. How could anyone 25 or 30 years old afford a house at $1.2 million? So what are the solutions? I'm a conservative because I believe that conservatives believe in the dignity as us as Canadians to be individuals. That as Canadians, as individuals, we have the right to be free, to live free, to pursue that which motivates us the most. Not because man or government says it's the right thing to do, because it's our God-given natural rights. I also believe that to fix our inflation on housing and other things caused by overprinting of our money, we need to be producing more of the things money buys. That means homes. That means freeing up our home builders to build the things that Canadian needs. It means unleashing Canadian innovation, making things in Canada. Now, I come from rural Canada. If we are to fix our persistent problems facing Canadians and build the next decade into a time where Canada can lead the world, then we need to focus on urban and rural Canada, on producing more of the things that money buys. To fix our inflation nation, we need to become an innovation nation to produce more wealth. That means allowing individuals to pursue what motivates them and ensuring that the government assists individuals to make, grow, dream, and do in Canada so that those individuals making things in a free and enterprise-motivated economy will create wealth and jobs, reversing inflation and ensuring Canada does not see any more decline. And not just in urban Canada, where there are 94 cities of over 100,000 people, but in rural Canada, where there are over 3,700 municipalities. The key to Canada's growth is not just in urban Canada, but in rural Canada. An innovation nation includes all 3,800 municipalities, its regions, and its more than 600 First Nations, Métis, and Inuit reserves. In 2018, I was part of Canada's first Rural Innovation Summit in Belleville, in which we hosted the thinkers, dreamers, and doers to talk about empowering Canada's rural regions, accelerating businesses, and growing our Canadian innovation share. We have an alarming rural out-migration number. 80% of our youth in rural areas end up leaving our rural areas to go to urban centers because that's where the jobs are. I lost many of my friends growing up as they left for bigger centers. You know, we need youth in our regions. We need youth in our rural regions. Some say youth are the voice of tomorrow. I believe that youth in this country are the voice of today. How can we truly listen to our children if they continue to leave the place we call home? How can they further stay in the place we want them to call home when they cannot afford the home? We need a great rebuild of what will make Canada thrive. It's rural regions like the Bay of Quinte that have so much potential I know how to unlock, potential we saw in 2018 when we hosted Canada's first Rural Innovation Summit. We need to start demanding the best from Canada, and that specifically means the best from rural Canada. Right now, we aren't seeing entrepreneurs create the greatest wealth they can in Canada across all regions, rural and urban. We need to strengthen our innovation in this country, and we need to protect Canadian ideas and enterprise. Intellectual property, the measure of intellectual ideas that translate into wealth in this country, is massively underperforming other nations. In 2019, prior to COVID-19, Canada produced $39 billion in IP. Not bad. But compare that to the Americans, who produced $6.6 trillion of IP, or 169 times Canada, when they only have 10 times the population. We are protecting the stuff that creates wealth and kills inflation. Homes, technology, protecting our natural resources, including our softwood lumber industry, creating new world-leading cleaning energy, including our clean, ethical oil and natural gas, and advanced manufacturing. Ontario has a great announcement this morning on new modular nuclear power units being developed in the province. We're going to create a large number of GDP for the province and Canada. Innovation means improving what we're doing in the world and here in Canada, and we can do so much more. Madam Speaker, you cannot see it, but I'm wearing red socks. I wear red socks because it represents the color of our flag, the sacrifice that has been made by our soldiers to ensure that this is a free, democratic country, and because I believe, just like yesterday, when this House came together on Bill C-4, that this House can and will come together more often in Canada. Our people depend on it. Madam Speaker, thank you for allowing me to take the time. God bless Canada. Merry Christmas and happy holidays.
Questions and comments? Questions et commentaires. The honourable member for Thunder Bay Rainy River.
Being the member from Thunder Bay Rainy River, I want to sincerely congratulate the new member from Bay of Quinte for his election. He must be a good guy, given he's married to someone from Thunder Bay. And I'm sure when your kids started playing hockey, it came natural to them. Sorry, Mrs. Speaker, I know I'm supposed to be addressing you, but I was interested in his comments about businesses in his riding not being able to find employees. And as he may know, we have the same problem in Thunder Bay. I think this is a common problem across Canada. However, we're bringing in 400,000 immigrants this year. Maybe that's not enough. But what is his party and his stance on terms of immigration levels?
The honourable member for Bay of Quinte.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And yes, for the honourable member from Thunder Bay, I even learned how to play boot hockey, which apparently is something that they play there. And I love Thunder Bay. It's great. Just love it in July more than January. We are absolutely for more immigration. And in our platform during the campaign, we talked about skilled immigration, ensuring we have the labor needed to help our companies grow. And our country will not grow if our companies aren't growing, and if we're not providing jobs to Canadians and to those that are entering this country to ensure we're growing this country. When we talk about GDP for this nation, 50% of our GDP is natural resources. And so we need to make sure that we have employees that allow those industries to thrive. But like I said, for rural innovation, we need workers to grow companies. It's as simple as that. Growing companies creates more wealth. It contributes to our GDP. It's going to help solve this inflation crisis we have. Thank you very much.
Questions and comments? The honourable member for Longueuil-Saint-Hubert. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I want to thank my colleague for his speech. Something that I noticed in his speech is that my colleague admitted that in his riding, as is the case across Quebec, rents have doubled recently, and people are having a hard time finding housing. It's a very generalized problem across Canada. But the problem is his solution, he said, was to build houses. But we don't need to build houses, Madam Speaker. In Quebec, there are 500,000 households that are in dire need of housing and that are looking at paying over 30% of their income to pay for housing. That's the problem. So rather than buying houses, building houses is not a bad thing per se, but I think there are programs in the Liberal platform that still need a lot of work, but there is a program to help home buyers buy a first house. It's just a little bit too restrictive. But what we really need are massive investments to help the poorest, most vulnerable people, like people with mental health issues, domestic violence issues, drug addiction. So what we're proposing at the Bloc is that the government make massive investments right away, invest 1% of its budget in social housing. There are 40,000 Now, the honourable member can't make a speech. She can only ask a question here. So the honourable member for the Bay of Quinte.
Madam Speaker, merci beaucoup to my honourable colleague. And I agree with part of it. We have massive social problems. We have problems with rent and housing. But the solution is not more money. That's what's causing the biggest problem right now, which is this inflation, where people can't afford anything. The answer is supply. We need to be supplying more homes. And yes, we need to look at working across all party lines to ensure that how we create housing is not just a federal government issue. It's going to be working with our provinces, with Quebec. It's going to be working with our municipalities to ensure that we allow our builders to build homes. And as you had mentioned, also mental health, addictions, poverty, all caused right now and exasperated by rising costs, which are caused by—
To allow for a brief question, I'm sorry. I do